That's the first thing. Look at that and say, how can I align to this audience? How can I figure this audience out so well that I don't have to sell to them? I'm just supplying them a service or organization, a product that fits so well into their needs and their desires that I don't have to sell it.
Have you ever looked at your website or your social media posts or created a marketing brochure or proposal or even created a webinar launch and thought, this isn't working? It's just not working. Is there anybody even listening? Does anybody even know that I exist anymore? And sometimes what happens is, and I'm speaking this as in from my perspective, this has happened to me. It feels like you're lost. And I know I certainly felt that way a couple of years ago. Towards the end of 2022, I was at the end of my tether. I really thought I'm going to have to pack in this business. I thought, this is it. I'm going to have to do something different. And I was fortunate enough to be very aware of brand and brand strategy. But I also know and understand what it's like to feel lost. And if you're feeling that way right now or have felt that way before, let me tell you, you're not alone. And today, if you are feeling that way, you're in luck because we're flipping the script. I have this incredible guest expert on the show today. And really what we're talking about is taking that stuff that feels like it's just not landing anywhere to create a brand that leaves a lasting impression and that gets customers to say yes. So our guide in this mission today is Wes Henstock, founder of Confidential and master of purposeful branding. Wes, I can tell you firsthand, thinks big, disrupts the ordinary, and helps you tap into the true power of your brand. So folks, get ready, get your pens and papers out wherever you take notes, and let's get going. Wes, I'm so thrilled to have you on the Master Your Business podcast. Welcome.
Welcome. Yeah, I'm a bit nervous, but yeah, good to see you.
Nervous? What the fuck?
You never know. I never know what you're going to pump at me with questions.
Yeah, although now previous guests have said it was a lovely chat, so you've nothing to worry about, Wes. Nothing to worry about. Okay, straight down to it. So, Wes, you and I met at Level C, and I was so impressed. You were one of my mentors, but you really impressed me in terms of disruption and some of the questions that you asked in our group to prompt me to think bigger, to think different, and to think disruptively. So tell us a little bit around, like, how did you get to be that way? I don't even know where to start with this because it's such a big question. But yeah, just talk to me about disruption, differentiation, all those things.
Yeah, so I think it stems from way back in my early career. For those that don't know, like I started out in fashion. I have a knitwear degree, so that's what took me to America. And then I started out in the wonderful world of fashion. And when you start working in-house for global labels like Armani, Tommy Hilfiger, DKNY, your sole kind of purpose as a designer, as a clothing designer, is to disrupt, is to stand out, is to be unique and allow bodies to be vessels of communication, right? So we're giving people a chance to communicate visually because of their outfit choice and how they wear things and how they style things. And I think that's unbeknownly to me where it all started. I think you fast track. So that was around the early 2000s. You fast track to the latter part of that decade. And I move into advertising, marketing, and solely like where I ended up is in a branding agency. And at that point, you're then heading up a creative team and you're bridging strategy and activation. And you're learning and you're coaching yourself to ask questions to provoke and instigate, right, and inspire. And I think that's where the kind of provocateur came out in me, right? Like just pushing and prodding and poking my team to try and be different, to try and find ways to differentiate that isn't just visually, but it's everything that we do and everything that we leave behind. And how can we leave that impression? Like every chance, every touch point is the chance to leave an impression. And if we go into design and strategy that way, we've got multiple chances to leave that impression behind. And I think then from that, and then elevating my career and moving more into brand, and then aligning with Andy and Marty Numia from Level C. They wanted to push me more and saw that side in me. I've always tried to do that with my own clients. I've always tried to push and get my clients to be brave and be confident and take a chance to stand out. And the ones that have, in whatever kind of way, whether they're extremely standing out or they're dipping their toe into the shark infested water, they're still doing it, and they still feel brave, and they still feel like they're trying to do something that will leave that lasting impression. So yeah, I think that's where it all started, and that's where it still is. And now I'm known for it, which is, I don't mind that. I don't mind being a rebel. I don't mind being, our website is Rebels with a Cause. So we're purpose-driven rebels, right? And we're out to make a change, but make a change with reason, make a change with a positive impact.
Love that. Love that. And in terms of leaving impressions and things like that, something that comes to my mind is sometimes brands are very traditional. And when people start off a business, they're inclined to build something that they already know, nearly model it on somebody they admire. But in other cases, they've done that, but they've done that a few years ago. So when should they start to think about being different, or how can they start to incorporate differentiation and disruption? Like, what would you say right now to those people listening to be the provocateur and make them go, fucking yeah, let's go, let's do something different?
I think you've got a chance, right? You got CEOs and brand leaders in the world it's a reality check, really. It's a self-confidence thing, and it's things that we've just said. It's about being brave. It's about being confident, about wanting to take that chance. Do you think about it psychologically like a fight? Do I want to go into a fight with my competition, put my fists up? Or do I want to just look at my competition, walk away, and find a way around not fighting? Because if you take that latter, that's when you've got to differentiate. That's when you've got to find a way to stand out, step out, and amplify yourself, because otherwise you're in a fist fight, and that fist fight ends one of two ways, right? You either get knocked out or you become champion. And that fight takes a lot of effort. That fight takes a lot of great determination, probably in financial terms, a lot of money to get where you need to get to. But if you outmaneuver and you disrupt, and you don't have to disrupt to cause trouble, it can be good trouble, right? You can just disrupt positively, and that will become your differentiators. I would say my advice to that question is take a look at yourself in the mirror, ask yourself, are you prepared to fight or not? If you're prepared to fight, then you better have a big bank account, and you've got to fight your way to the top financially, sadly, because you'll be doing a lot more with marketing, a lot more costs with experimentation. But if you kind of decide to invest in that strategic maneuver, and you find a way to navigate those waters without having to fight, then you're in a better chance of winning.
Yeah. So you've got to come out fighting. And so where should somebody start? Let's say I don't have a big budget, but I want to be fucking different, right?
Yeah.
Like, where can I start?
There are cheaper, simpler ways. If we take basic principles of brand, right, or branding, we have to start with who's buying our product, service, or organization, right? Who's engaging with that, who's purchasing it, who needs it, who wants it, who desires it. If we take that simple theory and realize that without that custom, we don't exist, right? We don't sell, we don't exist. We don't serve, we don't exist. Just look at your competition, see how they're interacting and engaging with their audience. It's the same audience as yours. Don't ever let anyone try and tell you, or you try and tell me, that you don't have competition. If I'm taking your money from you, I'm your competition. So that's the first thing. Look at that and say, how can I align to this audience? How can I figure this audience out so well that I don't have to sell to them? I'm just supplying them a service or organization, a product that fits so well into their needs and their desires that I don't have to sell it. And that is the simplest way. But yeah, on paper, it's probably a lot harder than what I'm saying. In reality, is if you can align to your audience so well, you'll start, and that's how you can start to differentiate and stand out. Not only like visually, not only verbally, not only within strategically, but you're going to get those core customers doing the work for you. Because as we all know, fragrance is a great example. Once we align to a fragrance, once we adapt it to ours, we make it ours, it becomes our signature scent. Think about how many times like, oh, that smell always reminds me of you. Anything like that. Once that becomes us, and we've got that allegiance towards that scent, we're never going anywhere else. And it takes a real hard effort for us to change that signature scent of ours. So think about that to your product, service, organization. And if you can create that sensation, and that perception that you're going to leave behind with that audience, they ain't going to go anywhere else. So that's the cheapest way to it. Really concentrate on your audience, do the homework, find out their behaviors, their psychographics, like what makes them tick. And if you can key your product into that, then that's where the magic will start to happen.
I remember when we were doing the exercise, Wes, and you were really pushing us to think differently. And what I loved about it was that we were all thinking that we were thinking differently, but we weren't thinking differently at all.
Yeah.
In terms of you've got the psychographics, you understand what's keeping them awake at night and all of those great things. Then what do you do next? How can people think differently when they already think they're thinking differently? What are those provocateur questions you've got to push people outside the box?
Yeah, I would ask yourself, like, is this different enough? And that seems a really obvious question, but over my years of doing this brand strategy and activation, like the amount of times I come in contact with a CEO or a business owner and say, yeah, we're really different. And then I do a quick Google on what their differentiation is, whether it be their product need or their differentiation of what it supplies. And you'll quickly see there's 6 other people doing it. But because they take their eye off the game and they think, oh, yeah, we're the leader in this, they don't see the fast followers coming behind them trying to take their legs out. They don't see that because they think they're reigning, they're winning, and they're quite ignorant. So I think that's the first thing is, are you actually different? Let's ask that real question. What is your differentiation? Because if you can claim and safely say that you are different because you do this and you do this different in that customer's mind that we just talked about, right? So it didn't have to be different for globally. We don't have to be the only people that do this. But in our audience set, if we're the only ones that do this, we're different. That's the first step. If you think you're being different and you get checked out and you say, okay, I'm not doing this any different, then you have to ask the question, okay, so how can we differentiate? What can we do it verbally? Can we do it visually? Can we do it in an activation? Can we do it in a campaign? Or does it have to go back to strategy? And do we have to really go back to our roots and think about why we're actually doing this in the first place? Because if we figure that bit out, then you've got a genuine reason to say why you're different, right? If you are giving back for a said cause, and that comes from a deep-rooted place in that CEO's heart or where, then it's a genuine reason of why you're different. And there's examples out there. I believe the audience is around accountancy and around insurance. But if we look at Dead Happy, which is life insurance, that's removing the kind of the doom and gloom from life insurance, which is the worst thing that no one ever wants to deal with. But the way they go around things is they make a point of difference. There's Robinhood is like an open format, I guess, trading platform, but it gives back. Then I think Lemonade is another one where they're an insurance policy, but they have a give back fund. So rather than when all the other insurance brokers cream off the top and they take it for themselves, Lemonade actually give that back to a society or an organization, and they prove it through public knowledge. So again, you can have the same product as everyone else, but it's what you do with it and how you do it, which makes you different. And coming back to the 3 core questions of who you are, what you do, and why you matter, if you can answer them and articulate them really easily and quickly, then you're doing something right. But the mattering bit is the bit that remembers, that sticks in our mind, right? Mattering now is the new marketing. We market mattering, why it matters, why we're different, and what we do. And that's the bit you need to key into that differentiation. And that's the question you need to ask yourself. So why do I matter? Why do I matter to my audience? Not everyone's audience, my audience that I'm keying into. You know what I mean?
I love that. I love that. And let's say, Wes, like some companies then they think, oh, I can't do anything different with my branding or my marketing because it's not going to look right, or it's going to look like I'm, I don't know, hormonal and I'm changing from one day to the next. What's going on? When is the right time to do this stuff?
When you start losing. Take COVID as a prime example. It's an obvious one, but think about all the brands that survived there. Like the moment you stop losing or you lose your audience and you lose your customer and you don't develop with time, you're going to die. Blockbuster. Look what happened to that. Mothercare. They're not evolving. They don't move with their audience. Again, it comes back to that same equation that I said at the start of this podcast. If we understand our audience, we can align to it and we can keep moving. The moment we forget about that audience, we get ignorant and we get confident and we die, because Blockbuster didn't realize that the whole world was moving online. Blockbuster didn't realize that the key things that were frustrating to that customer were the late fees, were getting charged, were getting penalized because I didn't have time to do it in my busy lifetime. I didn't get time to watch it in a week. Netflix comes along. Yes, there's obviously some other theories that have gone into it about reverse thinking and reverse assumption, but they realized quite quickly that this audience has moved, right? So we need to move with it. And once we move with it, we're serving it differently. And then that audience quickly then moves away from Blockbuster because I don't need to pay late fees anymore. I don't even need to go to the store anymore. I can get it delivered to my house, X, Y, Z. So you can have a really good product, but it's how you manipulate it and make it different. And that time is when you choose it. When your audience moves, you got to move. When the world closed down, the brands that survived or amplified or grew in that time of COVID and lockdown were the ones that realized, like, shit, we got to move. We got to make this early. And they've also got to be reactive, right? The longer the days of taking 3-4 years to get a product out, it has to move. We have to move quick. Technology in this present day, in our generation, is in the blink of an eye. If we're not on the ball, again, you're going to die. You've got to react, and you've got to, just take the leap, but always move with your customer. And if you've got somebody constantly like analyzing your core customer weekly and what they're doing, and how their behaviors are changing and what matters to them, your brand will evolve and keep moving with them.
Hey, ambitious business owners, are you sick and tired of marketing that just doesn't cut it? Feeling like you're shouting from the void in social media, wondering why your competitors are killing it while you're stuck in the mud? Well, I've got some freaking great news for you. It's time for you to stop shitty marketing and start fucking nailing it. If you're ready to ditch the guesswork and finally attract those dream clients, then listen up. I'm introducing the Business Accelerator Mastermind, your rocket ship to client magnet status and serious cash flow. It's time to break free from those quiet crickets and unlock the next level in your business. Now, I know you might be thinking, Deirdre, just another mastermind. What's so special about this? Well, it isn't your average program. In Business Accelerator, we cut the fluff and get straight to the good stuff. We'll talk about magnetic messaging, where we're crafting a message that actually connects with your ideal clients, making you stand out from the copycat crowd. We're going to turn your business into a client attracting machine. And what I mean by this is turning your social media into a lead generation powerhouse that works for you, not against you. And we're going to work on your thought leader status by establishing yourself as the go-to expert in your field, the one that everybody wants to work with. And the best part, Business Accelerator is for action takers. So if you're ready to break out of that 100K income ceiling where you've been stuck and you're ready to unleash your business potential, well, then you belong here. You don't have time for wasted efforts. You need a proven roadmap to success. Think of Business Accelerator as your marketing secret weapon, where you're going to get ready to transform your business with the BMC method. You're going to get personalized support and a community that's got your back. You can say goodbye to any marketing misery and hello to confidence, hello to clarity, and hello to a thriving business. Okay, I get it. Hearing it from me is one thing, but how about this?
For a long time now, I've had this goal of hitting 20K in 1 month. And so if all of that pans out, the total revenue plus projected revenue comes to around 36,750 USD.
Ready to ditch the frustration and finally see the results you deserve? Well, Business Accelerator is your ticket to success. Applications are open right now, but only for those willing to put in the work up front. Visit www.deirdremartin.ie/Business Accelerator to see if you've got what it takes. Yeah, I think the core thing that I'm hearing through everything you're saying, and it's like a fundamental value of mine, is that everything comes back to your customer.
Yeah.
Everything comes back to your customer.
You ain't got no one to sell to, you ain't selling shit.
Yeah.
And that's reality. Like, you can be the greatest brand in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're dead. Like, I used to work in ecom, and when brand comes into the ecom, it's quite interesting. But my designers used to be concentrating so much on a banner, and I'd be like, that shit can be a Van Gogh, but if there's no fucking buy button, who's buying it?
Mm-hmm.
Simple. But you concentrate so much on getting the product right, in this case, the banner and the creative, but where's the buy button on this? Where's the CTA? How do I allow that person, that customer that this is appealing to, how do I allow them to buy it? It seems really obvious, and you probably hear and read so many people on LinkedIn barking on about customer, but it is customer. Like, and it's more about, we've heard the whole debate about start with why, start with people. Like, yes, it's still about starting with why. It's still about working from a purpose, but you're still aligning to the audience purpose relates to, right? If that purpose doesn't relate to me, I don't give a shit. But if it does relate to me, I'm sold. I don't have to question me, So we're still
Yeah.
starting at the same place, but we're doing it from a custom perception and not our perception.
Mhm.
That's where it goes wrong. Let's forget, I did a podcast recently, or a live, and it was all about like my theory of it's what works and what doesn't work, not what I like and what I don't like. Because the moment we have emotion in there, it becomes our perception. But the moment it works, we're justifying why it works. And 9 times out of 10, we're justifying it because the customer would like this, the customer wouldn't like this, so it works, right?
Mhm.
You flip the switch, just bring that into your domain every day, and it'll change.
It's interesting too, because this week I've been at a mastermind, and the one biggest thing that I took away was take bigger risks. And I think sometimes what's inclined to happen as a solopreneur business, that a lot of people, they play it safe because they're solopreneurs, but actually taking the risk by flipping that switch, like you've just said, and putting yourself in your customer's shoes, going to make it work freaking better.
Yeah, and I think the leaders around the world that make that work are the ones that are succeeding. Look at Sticks from Liquid Death, and I know I've spoken to him, I've worked with him on the level C, but he gives his authority to his staff who are in the mind of that customer. So yeah, forget the disruptive ways of how they've made themselves. The other part of it is like he trusts his staff so much that let you guys talk to your audience as ambassadors in your way. So I'm not going to dictate by a brand guide like how we should talk about Liquid Death, how we should describe how it tastes. No, you talk to your audience in your language, and we'll relate to them on that level. Because again, going back to the audience, and the moment you stand back and let your people that you employ, and you've made that decision because they're important to you and you've hired professionals or experts, let them like find a way into that audience and talk to them and relate to them. And then you sit back and you run a margarita on the beach at that point, right? But the moment you try and micromanage and you put your emotion behind it, I can't do that. That feels it's going to feel uneasy because it's not you. You've created a product for somebody else. So let them relish in that rather than you wincing and rolling and turning in your skin because you're making this bad decision because it doesn't sit well with you. Like, and that's where it all falls. It's hard to do. You got to hold your breath, and it's like the scene in Aladdin, right, where he's sat on the rug and he's floating and she's stood on the edge of the thing, and his hands out and you trust me because we've got one way to go here, and you're gonna have to get killed by the guards or you're gonna come by this rug with me. You know what I mean? And it's just like that point there, that tipping point.
And I think just to throw in here for anybody who's listening, going, I don't have a team of people to keep an eye on my customers. You're the one talking to your customers. Every time you have a sales call, that's qualitative market research that you can gather and collate. And go back to some of the earlier episodes. I'll share the links in the show notes later. I'm not sure what episode number it was, but we had somebody on from Ipsos who talked about gathering quantitative and qualitative market insights. And really all that is in terms of qualitative, and that's where the conversations are, is it's freaking conversations. It's talking to people and gathering that information. So I'll share those links in the show notes later. But Wes, I'm totally on board with everything you're saying, obviously. But so I'm again, it's for the solopreneurs that are listening that I really like. I just really want to know, what can we do today? What can you share with them today to help them think disruptively, to do something today? What action could they go away after listening to you today and do something that's going to make them pop, stand out, be different, make their competitors go, holy fuck, I want to be like them?
Okay, so I think there's 2 parts to this. It's physical and mental, right? The mental one is being vulnerable. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to look at your competition, look at what they're doing and say, we're not doing this right. We're not winning. Like, be truthful, be vulnerable, right? Because the more you're vulnerable, the more open you're going to be to exploring, to more investigating or thinking differently. So vulnerability is your superpower. I've said it tons of times, probably all over LinkedIn. Vulnerability and curiosity are the two things that's going to get you far. Right? Get them down. That's your mental side. And then your physical side is, again, just drawing on our competition. Let's put a grid together of what they're doing, where they're winning, or how you feel they're winning, what they're doing differently to you, what's their messaging style, what's their tone of voice, who do you think their customer is, and plot it and see where there's gaps. A bit like back in the day, I'm probably showing my age, but like battleships, where you've got a grid system. And if there's a gap in the grid, that's the bit to aim at. And lastly, goes back to what you just said. Let's use our customers to get better. Roll your sleeves up, be vulnerable, grow some balls, and ask the customers, where could I be better? What could I do more for you? Why do you even use my product, service, or organization? Ask this question, like, why did you choose me over somebody else? If you're going to put your money somewhere else and I wasn't around, where would you put it? Ask that question. Frame it that way. Not why would you go to someone else, because they're not going to answer you. But if I wasn't here, where would you be shopping now? Because they'll be like, straight away they'll tell you like, oh, I'd go here. Why would you go there? Ask that question. Why? Because that's the value. Why would you go there? Well, because they're X, they're Y, they're Z. And if they ask, oh, because they're cheaper or they're quicker, ask why again. But what else? What else would you go? If it was free, why would you go? If you didn't have to pay for it, why are you going to them? Because that is the genuine reason of why they're going or why they would go. And there's your quick tips. There's no frameworks in this. It's just being vulnerable, being curious, asking questions. And as you said, rightly so, that is at your fingertips, whether it be data-led, whether it be audience-led. Incentivize your audience. Get a group call in. Like, I want to get better. There's nothing better. If we had the greatest running shoe in the world, and we'll mention Nike, and Nike called me up and said, I want to better our shoe, do you think I'd say no? Because I'm their audience. I'd jump on a call. Like, how can we better? And we'd get a group call in, and we'd probably get a voucher after to go and spend at night, which increases their revenue. So give something back with your revenue, with your company. Ask for some questions, make it a little event, get them talking about it, and do that every month and grow. And your customers will change, and you'll adapt and change with them, because it's everything what we just said in the last half an hour. Stay on top of them, make them your friends, because that's what they are.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So vulnerability and curiosity, and then really diving into your competitors and looking for those gaps, and then having those deep and meaningful conversations with clients.
Yeah, exactly that. It's just being real. I got far in my industry, in my world, in my networking, because I was just honest, and I didn't want to play the games of everyone else. I didn't want to act I was somebody I wasn't. And I just asked questions, and even now, like when I'm in the shit, I'll ask for help. Like when I don't know, I'll ask more questions. When I want to know more, I'll ask again. Like we've worked with me. So if I want to know more, I'm going to keep digging. And the comfort zone has to disappear.
And my gosh, is it uncomfortable when you keep digging?
Yeah, but as a facilitator and a mentor, and an advisor, you've got to get used to being uncomfortable. Like the biggest stick I have in the industry is like, as strategists, everyone thinks it's okay just to deliver a strategy and not be accountable for that strategy after. So like, we can give you this great looking document, we can give you like all the advice in the world, but if we're not going to allow you to know how to bring this strategy to life, and we're not willing to hold your hand through it, we're not strategists. We're just giving you some theory. You know what I mean?
Completely agree. That drives me nuts as well.
So again, like it comes back to vulnerable, curious, asking the questions. Be really uncomfortable. When you get to that silence, when you get to that bottom of the barrel or the cave where the phoenix is going to rise from it, that moment is where the magic starts to happen. That moment is where I've been in a purpose session with a company called Shuko. And I shit you not, for 5 hours, we were still in there. It went dark. We had to break, and the room was silent for so long. But all of a sudden, something happened. All of a sudden, somebody you least expect stands up and makes a statement, and they've been quiet all the way through, and they flip it. And at that point, then you start to learn, then you start to move. And their purpose came from that. Their purpose came from an architect. There was nothing to do with senior management. There's nothing to do with C-suite. But because they thought differently, and we put them to a point where I'm not moving forward unless we get this right. And I'll make that very clear. People who work with me, if they ever listen to this, they'll laugh, because I'm like, I'm not just taking your shit. I know you just want me to move on, but I'm not going to take that. If I'm not happy with this, we're not moving forward, because the purpose is at the base of everything we're going to do. and it's holding us up, right? And if that's not right, and I don't believe in it, it's going to crumble. So the money you're going to spend on this strategy, 10, 20, 30, whatever it is, and the time is just pointless. I might as well go home and just go and kick it in a bar. Let's just do that. So yeah, like it's vulnerable, curious, accountable. Like they're the key.
And whereas a lot of the people that I meet, like when you're talking there about strategy, a lot of the people that I meet, they think they have a brand strategy, but they actually have a business strategy.
Yeah.
And they're two quite different things, aren't they? What's your take on that?
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, a business strategy is a plan how to get money into the business. And a brand strategy is just the fundamental elements that's going to formulate that plan. Right? Yeah, it's like a campaign strategy or a business strategy. Like, we need to sell this product to this audience and get this much return. Yeah, that's a plan. That's fine. That's a business strategy. That's a campaign strategy. But behind that needs to go, okay, so where we're going to go fishing, what time we're going to go fish, who we're going to fish for, what does our fish look like? What time do we have to cast that rod? What's appealing to the fish? Like, all those things are what's going to go into the ingredients to that pot. That's going to then, when you go fishing in your marketing and your business, then you know everything on the down to the bait on the line, to the size of the hook, to when you're going to cast, to what pond we're going to cast in, is all deterred by the strategy.
And one of the other things that I find with people as well is, and it's just they don't know what they don't know. It's like their business has been in situ for 5 years, 10 years. I've even had clients who've been in business for 40 years and they've never had any sort of brand strategy. They've never even had brand guidelines for a style guide, like nothing. And it's not uncommon, really, but what is the difference it can make to a brand in your view, Wes?
I think it is, and you're right to point those guys out, the ones that you just mentioned. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I call them brand by chance. That's where they've just seemed to have got everything right. They've employed the right people. They've took a lot of trust, or they put a lot of trust in the staff, and the staff know what they're doing, or even they've winged it, and they've landed it right. And these things happen in societies, like brands that create these fads or these habits, like fidget spinners or whatever. Like, where did they come from? How did that happen? But it did, because they're brand by chance. They just appear. They've probably been working for so long, and they're also doing something happens in society, boom, and they're off. They've made their millions. So I think going back to the question is that will happen. But the moment your business starts to deplete, or the moment that momentum starts to slow down and shift, that's the point where we have to say, okay, let's try and go back to that audience that we've lost, or let's try and find a new audience that we need to reverse this product that we've got into, or let's just do an innovation workshop and think about what actually is the benefits of our product, service, organization, and let's just re-message it back to the audience we've lost. So that's where you need to do it. And you're right, like the sweet spot for me in my business is finding those companies that's been trading, surviving for 5 years, 2 to 5 years, earning 5 to 5 mil-esque. They've got a small enough team that you can manipulate and mold, and that you can get in a room that's on board. So you can get a 20-man team in a strategy session, and we all know where we're going, and we all know why we're doing it, and we all know what we're doing it for. And most importantly, we all know why we matter. So therefore, you're tooling them and engaging them in a way where then when they go back to their desks and into their own departments, they understand that how this has to bleed through into their everyday, and how that bleeds into their work way, into their messaging with the customer or the public facing output. And that's where you can get them. And they almost meet this kind of airlock where they're trying to burst through and they're trying to scale, but they just don't know how to get through it. And that's when, if you just put an ounce of strategy into that little mix, unlocks doors, it breaks through that little seal, because you've got more reason, more intent, more understanding, and most importantly, the most valuable keyword in business, alignment within your team, that you'll drive through that airlock, or you'll drive through that block. And that's when you need it.
I love that. And it's so true. I can agree. And even reflecting on some of the companies I've worked with who've been in that space as well, that's exactly what's happened. It's like they've lost direction, or they've hit a plateau where they just can't surpass that. And to be fair, a lot of the clients that I work with on brand strategy and stuff like that, they're not even making 100K yet. Some of them are well above that. I've had companies making 40 million that I've done this with as well. But it's interesting. typically the smaller companies and smaller solopreneurs are the ones that I like to work with. And what I love about that, Wes, I don't know if you find this, but I love working with those smaller businesses because they're so much more open to change and implementation and activation of that strategy faster than the big teams that are like trying a slow horse trying to plow a field.
I agree. Like they're the ones that if you get them right and they're willing and you show you're willing to work with them and hold their hand like we've referenced, they'll go. Like I had a client, I still work with these guys now. They were 14 years in business and I didn't hear this directly, but I was on a call with somebody they referred me to just yesterday, and they said Harry had a business for 14 years, and after 14 years you've turned his business around. And he's a 2-man band, 3-man band. And he's joked with me, and my middle name's Activation, because he will literally take something I give him, and he's almost too quick. Like he'll be doing it, and I'll be like, "Yo, slow down, man!" But he's just so keen to get things going. And again, he's in coaching, mainly football and sports, but he wanted to bring mindset to the game. He wanted to educate the mental side of football in kids 3, 4, 5-year-old. So on the ball coaching and off the ball coaching, and he just wants to drive it. And as far as I'm aware, he's not told me face to face, but his business is now booming. I see it. My kids go there. So it's great to see that when you get a solopreneur or somebody that's really engaged and wants to make shit happen, they'll do it. Like I've literally seen his business turn around in 6 months, 7 months. We worked with another brand called Paused, and we took them from a strategy to a shelf in 12 months because they were just wanted to do this. Luckily me, Martin and Ash, part of WAM, like we got this brand in it, or this company in a position where it became appealing. And out of one of our documents, they managed to get investment, like just off of the document that we'd done because they positioned themselves in a certain way. And that then obviously just momentum flew them through. And before you know it, they're talking to Boots and they've got them in Boots. So again, if you've got that's a 2-man team, by the way, and they're relying on contractors and people and experts they're bringing in to benefit them, they will move, and you can move fast. And like I said, from literally a concept. And they had balls, man. It's a menopause product, right? And luckily I had some relationship in the past with Hilary Leem, who is one of the partners. And she was like, I want to bring you in. And I never thought anything of it. And then before you know it, you've got 3 guys working on a menopause brand, disruptive from the start. So whether she meant that or not, I need to. But it's interesting. And as she came to me, I decided to bring the boys in. And before you know it, you've got 3 guys working on this brand that wants to support women and men. I think that's they'll disrupt this through that stage of life, right? And not only do we support men, but we support women. Well, we support women, we support men. But your head's going, why would men come into menopause? But you believe it, we go through it too. We go through andropausal states, which are like menopause for women, they're andropausal for men. And that will be a thing, that will change. And we need to be ahead of the curve. And they're believing us and they're trusting us in that.
Cool. What an important topic. How exciting that is to be working on those kind of things. You've worked on some really cool brands, Wes. Do you want to name drop some here for anybody listening who might be an ideal client for you?
I'm not really that kind of guy, but like I mentioned a few on here, Shuko, we've worked with Raheem Sterling Foundation. Paused. We've worked with Sigma on a strategy level. Some smaller companies that are really important, like OTB Coaching, Reuse a Box, really purpose-led smaller businesses. Outside of that, like I've strategized in my career through a big medical kind of portfolio, which I don't really talk about too much, but Pfizer, AstraZeneca, we've done a lot of partner agency work with Havas and publicists. In my past, I was quite heavily involved in sports, which is another interesting topic, but I've worked with the Marlins, I've worked with Yankees, I've worked with the NFL, I've worked with the NHL, New York Islanders. It's been an interesting journey, as well as all the fashion stuff.
Cool. Wes, we better wrap up because I would just ask you questions all day because it feels like a coaching call for me too. So tell me, just as we wrap up, is there anything else that you haven't said that you think small business owners would really benefit from learning today, or have you covered everything already?
No, I think there's a Bible of things we could go through, but I think to small business owners is take a chance, and there's more ways to take chances. Ask questions. Like if you don't ask questions in life, you won't go far. Reach out to somebody, ask for some help. What do you think of this? I've had people just jump in my inbox in LinkedIn, like, I've got this, take a look at this, whatever it may be. And 9 times out of 10, people are kind. People will help you. And if they want to give you a bit of friendly advice, they will. And if they won't, so be it. That's the worst they can do is say no. So ask questions, get some insight. Yeah, and I think that's the rest of them we've covered. But yeah, just go out, ask questions. You've got nothing to lose.
Okay, that's your homework, folks. You've got to go out and just ask a shit ton of questions.
100%.
Amazing. Wes, thanks so much for being on the show. Really loved having you. I'm going to drop all your links and everything in the show notes so people can connect with you or reach out if need be. Thank you so much for being here.
Always. Thanks for having me. Did you hear the lawnmower that was going by?
Phew, Wes dropped some serious brand bombshells today. And whoa, some serious big brands he's worked with too. So I think looking at the takeaways from this, is a couple of things. Firstly, you've got to be a provocateur in your business. You've got to ask yourself and your clients provocative questions to really get to the root of how you can differentiate and disrupt. Because if you want to be the type of brand that leaves lasting impressions, you've got to be different. Because people are hardwired to look for the things that are different. So everything comes back to your customer. Everything comes back to your customer. If you've listened to this show, you've heard me say that time and time again. Everything comes back to your customer. We talked about vulnerability and curiosity and constantly asking those questions, why? And we talked about looking at your competitors and doing a little bit of a gap analysis to see wherever they're zigging, that maybe you can zag. And asking those questions like, why did you choose me? And if I wasn't here, where would you be shopping now? Or who would you be buying from? Who would you be working with? All those sorts of things. So it's time for you to do your homework. And that homework, it's up to you what you decide to do. Maybe you want to go and analyze your top competitors, or maybe you want to try and work on your brand's purpose statement, something like that. Or maybe you want to have some chats with some customers. Whatever you do, just make it a goal. Set it out that you're going to do it. Because at the end of the day, baby steps ignite real change. And I said it at the start, take bigger risks. Do the things that's going to move the needle. And if it scares the hell out of you, let me tell you, you're probably doing the right thing then. That's it. Thank you for listening, folks. If you're ready to transform your brand, I hope you are after listening to today. Please do me a favor. Leave us a rating on wherever you're listening to the show today. Tell a fellow business owner about this episode. All of those things make a huge difference and help the show get found and heard by other amazing entrepreneurs like you. So hit the follow button, leave us a rating if you can, wherever you're listening, and give us a review. We'd love it. Absolutely love it. And when you do that as well, you're never going to miss an episode. They'll show up wherever you choose to listen. Okay, that's it for my ramblings at the end of the episode. Again, check out the show notes for some of those other episodes around qualitative and quantitative insights. And until next week, keep mastering your business. Bye for now.